I explain it to non-sports people who are in tech is baseball is an Excel spreadsheet done perfectly. Like when you are looking at baseball, like the biggest draw to baseball for the longest time was just the amount of like copious record keeping that ever existed.
Yeah.
And also shout out to the MLB for incorporating the Negro League stats, which the Negro Leagues were baseball for non-white people until about the 1950s, I believe, when they integrated with Jackie Robinson crossing the color barrier and that. So now that the Negro League stats have been included, there are a lot of major league records that have changed hands. And it's wild because you see like the Atlanta great is Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
All-time home run, like career home runs.
My parents were at that game.
Oh, that's amazing.
Is that cool?
That would be like fantastic. I think the thing with baseball and now with the StatCast era since 2009, you can track how far the ball has moved both vertically and horizontally on every single pitch. The record keepers like record the escape velocity of every single ball that's hit, as well as the launch angle to predict how far the ball would have traveled.
So you like stats. That's what you like about it. It's stats. Okay.
Well, but it's like an absurd amount of stats.
Yeah.
Like hear, an announcer will be like, "Oh, this batter after May 30th for the past 7 seasons, whenever batting against a left-handed pitcher with one eye closed who blinks twice, like has an OPS of like 850." And it's just like, why do you have that? Hold on one second.
So the Wrexham team incorporated these bras that the whole team wears.
Okay.
And they track like how far a player moves, when a player moves, where the ball is. And like they never show us what they do with that data though. Like I don't know.
I mean, it's probably for training stuff.
Well, sure. I assume that they're doing something strategy wise with that data, like maybe choosing what players to put in first. I don't know. But it's nothing like baseball.
No, I mean, that is interesting though. What Jay's talking about with all the record keeping with baseball. I hadn't even thought about that, but I do like statistics. I don't know if that's ever been why I like baseball. Certainly like it definitely makes, I think, it easier to jump in to learning things about it.
Well, it's a simpler game than football.
Well, it is. I mean, football is good with stats too, but football, they haven't been as good of record keepers, to Jay's point. But it definitely is an easier game, and they don't make the same number of rule changes. Like football will make rule changes like every few years, and you're like,
really?
Wait, what is this thing? Yeah, because I'm not a big NFL person, but I did watch this past season because of the Taylor Swift of it all, and so and I'll admit it. And got like, there were things where I was like, oh, I didn't know about this rule. And then I would like learn, I'm like, how out of this am I? Like, I thought that I, as like a good, raised in the South person who was forced to watch football all the time. Like I figured I knew most of the rules of the game. And they're like, no, this is a rule within like the last 5 years. And I'm like, fuck?
Give me an example of like a new rule.
I'm too fried from being out for too long. But there's a certain thing where like, if you were a couple of, yards away from making the touchdown and you were not able to get it on the completion play, like then basically like you're not going to be able to kind of get the turnover. When there's some sort of turnover rule that's happened where basically like it looks like if it had been a setup, it had been a few years ago, then you could. Basically, it's preventing people from doing certain gamification things, I guess, to make it easier for them to win.
Push from happening.
Essentially, yes, and there's like a rule involved. Yes, and there's a rule involved in that. I can't remember what it's called, but it like was introduced a couple of years ago, and like I had no idea what it was until it happened in a Chiefs game, and then like the very weirdly not at all autistic Taylor Swift fangirls who've learned all the rules of football. Within 72 hours of her dating a football player, like all were on it. No, I mean, genuinely, it was the most amazing thing you've ever seen. The most amazing thing you ever seen in your life. Like people who genuinely like don't know anything about football, like over the course of a few weeks, like learning not only like the entire history of the game and all the rules, but also like all the stats for all the players that that Travis Kelce will come into contact with.
I feel like my understanding of football is pretty rudimentary, and now I'm realizing it's probably 20 years out of date.
Yeah, I can understand the stats appeal of something like baseball because it can make it easy for people to get sucked into it. Like if you're new to a team or new to a game, like you have all the stats from all of history there that you can just kind of, you know, refer to.
It allows you to easily build like a reference point